Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Today's Friday, so in Friday sessions we usually have a full implementation video or a training session. Because we have a lot of ground to cover and we are pressed for time, like I said earlier, I'm not going to be muting the line, so please save all of your questions after the training session is over. And again, as always, you can request a link to the video, so if you do want to watch this again, or if you want this application, let me know via email, and I'm going to go ahead and email you all the files after the training session is finished. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. In today's session, to give you a use case overview, we're going to build a sales application. And this sales application consists of two user levels. We're going to have the employees being able to input their sales, and we're going to have the management being able to review all those sales, so look at charts and graphs that displays visually how each employee is performing in terms of their sales. And again, we're going to be building it from ground up. So let's go ahead and begin. Let me show you first what we're building today. So I'm going to give you a live example. Here's my template, and we're going to go ahead and log in as the manager first. So if I log in as a manager, once a manager logs in, he or she is able to sort all the sales based on who sold. So we have two employees. And before I show you the sales report, one thing you can do as a manager, you can add an employee. So you have this entry form where you can create an employee name, email, their password, and you can assign what user role that employee is going to have. You can manage all the employees in this report. You're able to see that Steve is a manager. We can see who the employee is based on yes and no. And we can also see who's active versus inactive if they're able to log into their account. When we look at the sales report, we can search based on all the employees, or I can pull up specific employee sales. We also have a date range to be able to search from and to, and also search based on category. And the type of selling that the employees are doing, they're basically selling office supplies. So that was the example that I used. Of course, if you're selling something else, you can have your own category and look up at what you're selling. So let's click search and see the results. And this report here will show me that Oscar is currently outperforming Chris in terms of sales based on this bar chart. Down below I can see the breakdown of all the sales, so I can see group based on how Chris is performing, and I can see all of his sales. Over here I can see the quantity sold of each item. This is the price per item, and this is a total sold, so I can see this times that equals this. And for Chris, I can see the total revenue that he's brought in thus far is almost $6,000 in revenue, and you can see how that looks on the chart as well. And then for Oscar, we can see all of Oscar's sales. I can see the total for Oscar, and I can see the grand total at the bottom for how all of my employees are performing. And for example, let's say this fax machine that was sold by Oscar really belongs to Chris. I can go to the details view, and I can reassign this back to Chris as a manager because it was mistakenly inputted into the database. And I wanted to show you this user ID here so you can see that based on my selection, it moves the user ID, or it changes the user ID. You can also hide this field, but I decided to leave it exposed so you can see in the data page wizard how you can reassign based on a cascading dropdown. I can also change the quantity sold or the price per item, and when I click on update, now that it's going back to Chris, you can see how that affects my chart. Now that sale actually went to Chris, right up here, and then we can see on the chart how it's displayed. Now let's go ahead and log in as the employee. So let's log in as Oscar. And when I log in as the employee, I have the ability just to see my own sales. So I can see for the month of April how I'm doing, total sold. I can see my average sale in April. And this is May sales, so I can see for May how I'm doing. And down below you see the breakdown for April, you see May, and there's my total selling revenue for Oscar. For performance, I decided to create a chart so each employee can see how he or she is doing compared to everybody else in the company, to motivate them, so Oscar can see, okay, I'm outperforming Chris, I'm doing okay in terms of my selling and how I'm pacing myself. Then we also have a form to add a sale. So if Oscar just made a new sale, let's say in June, category fax, title and description, sold about 10 of them. We'll say quantity sold is 10, and then price per item can be, I don't know, 149. Click submit. Then when I go to my sales, I can see in June my total sales, my average sale, and of course that's going to be inputted inside a report as well. As an employee, I can also update my profile, so if I want to change my phone number or my password, I can do so. And as a manager, now I can see that additional sale made by Oscar. Okay, so now let's log inside Caspio and let's take a look and see how this application is built from scratch. So when inside the Caspio account, you're going to go ahead and click on New Application. And I'm not going to be importing any data, so I'm going to be building my application from scratch. And let's go ahead and name this Sales App. Okay, so there's my application. I'm going to go ahead and click on Open. And before I do that, let me go ahead and close the demo that I just showed you guys. Actually, I'll keep it open just in case we want to look at something. Over here in this tab, this is where I'm going to be deploying our newly built application. Okay, so let's go back to the Caspio account. And this training session assumes that you have attended all the prior training session, or you have some moderate knowledge on how to use Caspio in terms of building tables and authenticating. If you don't, if you're just starting out and if you're a beginner at Caspio, I do recommend you attend all of the prior training sessions from Monday. That way you can be up to speed with what we're doing today. So in my tables, I'm going to build my 3 tables really quickly. The first table that I'm going to build is the user table, which is going to contain all of my employee information. So I'm going to go ahead and need user ID, which is an auto number to identify each one of my employees, employee name, maybe phone number of the employee. I also want the email, which needs to be unique because I can't have the same email twice per login. My password field, instead of text 255, I'm going to encrypt that as a password smart type. I also want to identify each user level role, so I'm going to say manager, and that's going to be identified as a checkbox. We also want manager, and I want employee, and I also want the status checkbox, which is going to determine who can log in and who cannot log into their account. So again, if this is new to you, just feel free to attend our prior training sessions to learn how we can set up user roles using these checkboxes here. When you're done, go ahead and click on Save, and let's call this user table. I think I'm just going to leave it as an underscore because I think I used the same user table in a different application, so that's why I'm putting in an additional underscore here. So let's click Finish. The second table that I'm going to create is a lookup table for my categories. So if you look at our application here under New Sale, we have this lookup table for categories. Okay, so let me go ahead and build that next. So we're going to build a new table. And in Caspio, you can build as many tables as you want. I only need 1 field for categories. And let's call this categories with an underscore. And then really quickly, I'm just going to open up my table and list all of my categories that I like to have in that lookup table. So we're going to say fax, scanner, phone, and maybe laptop. So for office supplies. Let's go back to tables. And the last table that I'll need is a table to input all of the sales. So let's build an additional table. And the sales table is going to have, again, the user ID because I want to stamp which one of my employees is entering the sales. This is going to be a number. Again, auto number in the parent table, number in the child table. I also want to store employee's name of who is submitting that sale along with the user ID. And then you have all the other fields. So for example, sale date, the date when the sale was made, and that's going to be a date and time field. Then I also want to have title of what you're selling, maybe some kind of a description. That's going to be text 64,000. You also want category in this table as well, so you can select the category from the lookup table that we just created. So you need that field here in here as well. And then you also want to have quantity sold, and that's going to be a number field because that's always going to be a number for number of quantities of items sold, and price per item. And again, this is going to be a number as well. Okay, so I think those are all the fields that I'd like to have in my sales table. I don't think I need anything else. Just want to double check one more time. Okay, I think we're good. So let's go ahead and save now. And let's call this sales data. Click finish. And those are the three tables that this application is going to have. And just so everyone knows, in Friday's sessions, because we are pressed for time, most of the applications that I plan on building are going to be more of a beginner to intermediate level because we don't have that much time. So hopefully you guys are able to pick up a few things from these training sessions, or if you wanted to see something more specific, a bit more robust, or a different kind of workflow, send me an email offline. Let me know what kind of a question you have or something that you wanted to see specifically. And then what I can do on Friday is I can spend an hour showing you how to put together that more of a sophisticated workflow instead of building an application from scratch. Okay? So now that we have our three tables created, I'm going to go inside my user table. And I'm just quickly going to add Kim Jones, random phone number, and then kim@company.com. And I'll create a password for Kim. And I'll make her the manager and also active employee. And one more, we can say Walter White, Walter@company.com. Also password test, just so it's easy to remember. And we'll make Walter the employee and also status for now, just so we can have some sample users while we're testing the application. Okay, so now that the tables are all set up correctly, now what we have to do is build our two views that are going to filter based on the employee checkbox and based on the manager checkbox to where they can log into their interface. So we go to views. We're going to build our first view. And this is going to be manager login or manager view. And we want our user table because that's where all the credentials are for all of the employees. So we're going to move that to the right. And all you're going to do is just filter based on the manager checkbox, make sure that the value is checked, and also the status is checked. So what this means, what I'm doing with this setup, is if the manager checkbox in our user table is checked and the status is checked, that means that he's going to be able to log into the account. Let's go ahead and click on finish now. And we're going to build one more for our employees. So employee view, user table again. And for the employees, we want the employee checkbox checked and also status checked. And click finish. So now that we're properly able to filter our employees based on the view, now we have to set up our two authentications, which are going to be based on these two views. So we go to authentications. Let's build our first one. And it's going to be based on the manager view, the very first one. And the next one is going to be based on the employee view. So I'm going to select manager view. I always recommend custom because it gives you more customizations or options. We're going to use the recommended data source. And just a couple of changes to make here. You can see that on my label it says username for email. I'm just going to rename this to say email. And my password field is going to be password. When you're done, go ahead and click on create, and we're going to call this manager authentication. And then I'm going to create a new one for the employees. So custom employee view, and we're going to say email here, and password is good. So we're going to click on create, employee authentication, and finish. Okay, so I've mentioned this in the past. This is where I consider the foundation of any app that you build. Once you identified your tables, your views, and your authentications, if your application calls for password protection, You want to set this up first, these 3 tabs, and then you can go to data pages and you can start building your app, because now you have all of the necessary ingredients ready to be able to build your front-facing application. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is build my 2 folders, one for the management and one for the employees. Okay, and I think the logical step here for me to be able to do, or to build first, if we look at our sample where we're going to be deploying things, is as a manager, why don't we just begin building our app and give the manager ability to add new employees. Okay, so to add an employee as a manager, we're going to open up this folder, we're going to build a new data page, and I'm going to create a submission form because the manager is able to add employees using this form. We look at our live example, and if we go back to the manager view, here's that submission form that we're building. Alright, so submission form, we click next, and the table that we're going to need is the user table because that's where all the fields are for all the employees. We're going to go ahead and call this add new employee form. I like my style and localization is good, and we want to restrict access based on the manager authentication, and this is where you would apply that login screen to your app based on that authentication. So click next. We're going to add all of our fields to the right, and really quickly we're going to modify each field, and the only one that I'm going to make required is the employee name, because we have to have at least an employee name inside a table to identify the employee. Phone number can be not required if you don't have the phone number of the employee. Email will automatically be required because we made it unique inside our table, because it always has to be different. Password field also needs to be required, and then you want to confirm password. I usually like to put inside the label create password so that the user knows they're actually creating a password. And then we have the manager checkbox, employee checkbox, and the status checkbox. When you're done, go ahead and click on finish. And here's our first data page. Let's go ahead and deploy this data page to this new employee.html web page. So we're going to click on deploy, enable access, we're going to copy this code, and I already have all of my web pages set up. You can see that I have 7 web pages, and here is my new employee.html page for the manager side. I'm just going to go ahead and find my placeholder for the deploy code, paste my code right over there in that part of the website, save my script, publish my website, and then when I refresh my page, here's my login screen. Now of course I have to log in first as the manager, who in my table is Kim, password is test, and once you log in, now you're able to add one of your employees. So let's add another employee to our table. Let's say Jesse Pinkman, and we'll say random phone number, email jesse@company.com. And we're going to create a password for Jesse. Let's say test. And I want Jesse to be an employee, and I want to make him an active employee. So we click submit. This employee has been added to the table now. If you go to your tables of all the user tables, you're going to be able to see now we have an additional employee to our table, and we can see those 2 checkboxes are checked. So he does not have manager status, he has employee, and he's an active employee. Okay, so the next logical step in my application is, now that I can add employees, I'd like to be able to view my employees to see who I have in my tables, but I want my employees to be displayed on the web. So under the manager folder, we're going to build a new data page. And we're going to go ahead and build a report, tabular format, that's going to display all of my employees. It needs to be based on the user table, and we're going to call this view employees report. Same style, same localization. We're going to restrict access based on the manager authentication. And you can either create a search form to be able to search your employees. I'm just going to go ahead and see the list of my employees. You do not need to set up record level security because the manager should be able to see all of the employees. I'm not going to filter my data. And in the results page, I'm just going to list my employee name, phone number, email, and what status they have. Only for the status, I'm going to make a few modifications here. You can format the yes and no field. You can customize it. So you click on edit, you go to custom, and for display, what would you like to display on the report? I'm also going to make that custom, and if it's yes, I want it to say active. If it's no, I want it to say inactive. And for yes, I want that to be a green color, and for no, I'd like that to be a red color. Okay, so now we customize that yes and no field. Next, let's show 25. Let's also have the ability to delete our employees as a manager. I'm going to enable the details page, and inside the details page you can list all of the fields if you'd like, even the user ID. It's up to you. Employee name, as a manager I should be able to edit this. I'm going to make it a text field. I should also be able to edit the phone number, the email, password is going to be required, and as a manager we can also make these checkboxes so we can change the status of all the employees. When you're done, go ahead and click finish. And here's our second data page. I'm going to click on deploy, enable access, and I'm going to copy this code. And let's paste that inside this page. It's called manageemployees.htm. Manageemployees.htm, here it is. And find your placeholder on your website, paste the code, and refresh your page. Okay, so now we have this report. So as you keep adding employees directly from your website, you're going to be able to manage them right over here on this results page. So I think what I want to do next is now I want to create, let's move on to the employee side, and let's have the ability for the employees to add new sales using this form here. So let's go inside our Caspio account. Under the employees folder, we're going to click on new data page. And just so you know the reason why I'm moving on to the employee side, before I actually build the sales report for the managers to be able to see any sales, I'd like to see some sales inside that table first so we can display it using a report. So let's go to new sale, and let's go to Caspio, submission form. And this is going to be based on the sales table because that's where all the fields are. And this time we want to restrict based on the employee authentication because we're building the form for the employees. We want all the fields to the right. And now we have to make a few customizations. So the user ID, we already have this from the user table. Every single employee has a user ID. So what you can do here is you can authenticate. First you hide that field, and you grab the authenticated field from the user table, which is the user ID. Same thing for the employee name. You're going to hide this field, and you're going to stamp the employee's name. Okay. Sale date, I'm going to go ahead and make this a required field, and I'm going to have my employees be manually selecting the date using a calendar pop-up. The title is going to be required. Description, I'm going to make this a text area so they can type in the description. Now category, if you recall, we have a lookup table of all the categories. So what I'm going to do is make this a drop-down, and instead of custom values or lookup table, I like to use both because I like to add custom values and lookup table. So we'll do both, and for custom values I'm going to say select category. You're going to delete the value because you're not really selecting this, and then from the lookup table you select that categories table that holds all of the categories. Okay, so again, custom values, the reason why I do both is because both of the tabs are available now. I can do custom values, which is the first option that appears on my drop-down, and then everything underneath select category will be from the lookup table. And then you have the quantity field, which I'm going to make required, and also this is going to be required, and I think category I'm going to make that required as well. So the employee has to put in the category of what they're selling, along with the quantity and price. Finish. Okay, so now we can deploy this. by embedding it into our web page. And I'm going to go ahead and deploy that to a new sale.htm page. New sale, find my placeholder, and let's refresh. I'm going to have to log in as Jesse at company.com. Password is test. Okay, so I'm logged in as one of the employees. So now as an employee, I can submit my sales. I can sale date was today. Title, new laptop sold, Lenovo laptop. We can say laptop for category, quantity, let's say 10 of them at 500 apiece. Submit. Now we don't have a way to display these sales yet because we haven't built those data pages. But if you go to your table really quickly, just to make sure everything works properly, you can open up your table and you can see that now we have the sale added by Jesse Pinkman. We have his user ID, which is stamped inside this table, date of sale, title, description, category, and all the other information. Okay. Okay, so the next step is for the employees to be able to see their own sales. So now we're going to be building a report that displays the data in the chart and also below what we're able to see. And just so I get a refresher as far as the employees report, let me see what kind of report I built here. So we have a chart. Okay, so let's go back to our account. Under employees, we're going to build a new data page. And I'm going to build a report that's a combination of a chart and results. So if you look at my live example, the combination of a chart and results directly below. Okay, so let's go back to data pages. You select this one here, you click next. This is going to be based on the sales table because that's where all the sales data is stored. And let's call this view my sales report. I'm going to apply the same style and same localization. And again, just as a reminder, if anybody wants this application after the training session is over, I'll go ahead and export this to my desktop and email you all the files. So if you wanted to see the structure and functionality, let me know, and I'll email you the entire application along with my HTML files if you wanted to use these tabs. Okay, so let's go ahead and restrict based on the employee authentication. And I'm going to go ahead and filter the data. Notice that in my live example, I don't have a search form. There's no searching of the data. It just displays my records. And that's what I'm going to enable in our application as well. So I'm going to filter. And it's also very important here that you set up the record level security that only displays data based on my user ID. I don't want to see sales from other employees. I only want to see my own sales based on my own unique ID. Okay, so if you wanted to set it up that way, just make sure you enable this checkbox. Okay, I'm not going to filter based on any fields. And if you're not familiar what filtering really means, you can do things like this. So for example, if I include a sales date inside my filtering field, on the next screen, you can configure the field so it says, okay, display only the data from current year. And then your sales report will display data only from the current year, not in 2015 or 2013, just the current year. You can also do things like today's data, so it'll only display data from today, current week, previous X days. So this is what filtering allows you to do. You can set up parameters as to what you're able to view on the report. But I'm going to go back here and exclude that and click next, and then on my results page I'm displaying the sale date, category, title, description, and all these other items. So let's have sale date, title, description, category, and these two. Okay, so after you input all your fields, you go to the next screen, and this is where you're going to make a few modifications. Sale date, let's take a look at my live example. You can see that I'm grouping based on month. So immediately what I'll do based on sale date, I'm going to enable grouping, and I'm going to group based on date rollup and based on month. And I'm also going to have this be collapsible and expanded by default. So what that means, you can expand it by default and you can collapse it if you want to by clicking on this icon here. Then you have title, description. Another cool feature in Caspio, you can see these two double arrows, which allows you to truncate the data or expand. So if you enable advanced options in the beginning, which I didn't do, so let me go back a few steps and enable advanced options. Right over here in the description, now that the advanced tab is available, you can truncate to, let's say, just 10 characters. So it only shows you a limited amount of information, but if you expand it, it's going to show you the rest of the description if you wanted to see a quick look without having to go to the details page every time. Category is category. We have the quantity field and price per item. Notice that the price per item is customized and formatted with the dollar symbol and 2 decimals after the period. So what I'm going to do for that column is I'm going to format this as a currency. And then here you can change whatever symbol you want. You can add the decimals after the period if you want to. You click OK. And now this column will be formatted with the dollar sign with 2 decimals after the period. Notice I'm also having a calculation being made here. So after these 2 columns, you have a calculated field. To do that in Caspio, if you wanted to compute this times this, you would insert a calculated field inside your report. You're going to move that all the way down. And then we're going to call this total. And now to compute these 2 fields, we're going to go ahead and insert one of them first, so the quantity. And then you're just going to put a little asterisk for times. And you insert the second one, which is the price per item, like this. So now this new column will compute these 2 fields together. And all I want to do is format that column as well as currency with the dollar symbol. And that's how you create that additional column to calculate these 2 columns to give you a total here on the right side. Now, how do we add this aggregation at the bottom and also grouped aggregation based on month? Well, right next to the calculated field, you can insert totals and aggregation, which always appears at the bottom of your report. So basically, you write total if you want to. You can change the label. And what I want to compute is that new column, which is called total. So we're going to include that to the right. And I'm going to apply a sum function to it. If you had your own formula, you can compute your own formula here or enter it inside this text area. So we're going to do a sum. And I also want to apply this to every group. So because I'm grouping based on month, I want that total to apply to the group level as well. All right, let's click next. We're going to display 25 sales. I'm not going to be allowed to delete records as an employee. And as far as the chart, let's see, I'm using this type of a chart. So we're going to use the 2D column chart. And let's call the chart total revenue per month. So we'll say total revenue per month. I'm okay with this width and height. For the x-axis, I think I'm using the date field. I am. So for the x-axis, you're going to go ahead and include the date of sale. And you're going to call this month for the title. And let's have it appear horizontal inside the x-axis. So what that means is that the date is going to appear horizontal instead of vertical. Okay, for the y-axis, this is going to be the total. And you don't need to make any changes here. All you have to do is just format this as a currency. And now for series 1, this is where you actually compute. So this is what's going to be displayed inside the chart. So series 1, we're going to have the total, and I want the sum. I'm also going to go ahead and insert another series, get the total, but I want the average. So it gives me the average sale for that month. Okay, and let's just go ahead and change this to average sale, which is the label. And we're going to go ahead and format that as currency as well. And I think I may have to change this to currency too. Yeah, so let's change that to currency. So just a couple of modifications that are needed on the chart. Play around with this a little bit to be able to successfully build your chart. It's actually fairly easy once you get the hang of it. It's just have to make a few modifications to each one of your functions here. Click next. I'm not going to make any changes here. Let's click next, and let's go ahead and disable the details page now. Click finish. All right, so here's our data page. Let's go ahead and deploy this now. And where do I want to deploy that? I want to deploy it to my, it's called mysales.htm. So let's find that web page. My sales. Save that. Refresh. Okay, so there are my sales. I can see that I only have one sale because that's what we recorded inside a table. Just to make sure everything works correctly, let's add another sale here, and we'll say next month in May I made a sale for fax machines, random data, fax quantity 15 and $69. Okay, let's go to my sales again and let's make sure that was added. Okay, and it was. So here we have May and we have April, and then now you can see that we have the totals and aggregation at the bottom that computes all of our sales. We also have a group based on the month, and you can see the breakdown based on month in terms of sales. Okay, so now you can go back to the manager side and build a sales report for the managers if you like. But before I do that, let's go ahead and build an update form now while we're still on the employee side. Let's build a quick update form so employees can update their profile. So that's again under the employees folder. You're going to build a new data page. And this time what I want is an update form. Because all of my employee information already resides inside a table, all I want to do is be able to update it. I'm not entering new data, I'm just updating it because my Jesse's information is already inside a table. So we select this based on the user table, and let's call this update profile. New style, localization, restrict based on employee. And here it's important that you set up record level security based on the user ID again. So when I log in as Jesse, it validates my ID and it shows me only my data that pertains to my account. And the information I'd like to see in the update form is my employee name, phone number, email, password, and I don't need to see anything else here. So employee name, I'm going to let the manager be able to change the employee name. I'm going to leave that as display only. I should be able to change my phone number. I should be able to change my email. And I should be able to change my password if I want to. So we click finish now. And let's go ahead and deploy this guy to another data page, to another web page, I mean. And that's going to go to updateprofile.htm. So we find that web page. And we're going to go ahead and paste that code in here, save it, and refresh it. And there it is. So Jesse can now update the phone number, email, password to whatever he wants. And I think we can also build a performance tab now because we want to be able to see all the sales inputted by all the employees, and we want to be able to compare our sales to a sales of another employee. So let's build that data page now. And there is a little bit of a trick or also a tip here that I can add. I'm going to build a data page and explain to you why I have to use this report to do the chart. We're going to go ahead and hide the results because I don't want the employees to be able to see the data for all the employees. I only want to show them the chart. But the reason why I can't do a standard chart here is because the calculated field is not stored inside a table. So this is only for visual. Unfortunately in Caspio you cannot store calculated data inside a table. So it's just going to be for visual purposes only. If I had this field if I had all this data being stored inside a table, then I will be able to use this chart because now I can pull that field to give me the total. So I'll have to use a report, this one here, and I'll show you why in just a few minutes. We're going to click next. That's going to be based on the sales data. And let's call this performance charts. Restrict based on employee access. We're going to filter, so we're not going to be able to search. We don't want to search the data. We only want to display the chart. And you don't want to restrict access because I want to be able to see the data of all the employees on a chart to see how everybody is doing. And here inside the results page, what I want to show, well, it doesn't matter what you show here. I'm going to go ahead and just display everything. For example, employee name, sale data, because we're going to hide this later on. Okay, so let's click on next here. And what I need to do is just calculate these two totals here. So I need to insert another calculated field. Actually, I one step too soon. This is the filtering fields. Let me remove the filtering fields and let me include the results page fields. So let's include everything in the results page. And again, these don't matter later on. I'm going to show you a trick how you hide the results page. All we're really trying to accomplish here is get the chart. So let's insert a calculated field really quickly, and let's get that total by inserting our quantity times price per item. Okay, now I'm going to format, and let's also include the aggregation here as well based on that total field. And we're going to apply the sum. Not going to make any changes here. Let's click next, and let's use this chart here. If you look at our live example, under the performance tab, we're able to see that sideways charts that displays who's performing how. But notice that my results page, I'm hiding it. I'm not actually showing the data. All I want to show and display is the chart to see how everybody is doing. Okay, so we're going to use the 2D bar chart. And let's call this performance. Overall performance probably makes a little bit more sense. Okay. Y-axis, if you look at our live example, it's going to be the employee name. So why don't we display employee name? We don't have to worry about the x-axis because that's going to be the total revenue. So we'll just customize or format this as currency. And we'll say total for the label. And then what we're trying to compute here is the total, which is based on that calculated field. And we want the sum. I didn't rename the label inside the previous screen, so just rename the label to say total. And when you're done, go ahead and click next. Here on the chart, I want to display based on the sum, Z to A. So give me the highest number first to lowest, based on that sum field that we just set up. Click next. We're going to go ahead and disable the details page. Click finish. And let's see what we have here. Let's deploy it. We're going to copy the code. And we're going to paste that code into employee chart.htm. There it is. Okay, so I have my chart. This is good. And what I want to show you now how we can hide these results, because I don't want to display this, because if another employee enters their sales here, every other employee is going to be able to see what other employee is selling. And for the purpose of this demo, I wanted to show you a cool tip or a trick how you can use a little bit of JavaScript to be able to hide this results page. So if anybody wants this JavaScript after the training session is over, let me know. I have it here on the right side of my computer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that JavaScript inside my data page wizard to hide this. So we go to the data page and we edit our performance chart page that we just created. And when you get to the results page, right over here, you're going to insert header and footer. Inside the footer, you paste the script to be able to hide the table that's displaying all of the results. And while I'm on the topic of JavaScript, if you are fairly technical, there's a lot more functionality and flexibility that you can do inside Caspio. So if you have that technical background, you can do some really, really sophisticated and robust things inside your Caspio account. We have a lot of tutorials that are already ready for you if you wanted to explore the JavaScript. If you go to our forum really quickly, and if you go to support and forum, and you go to JavaScript solutions for Caspio, and here we have a bunch of them that you can already implement yourself. So if you wanted some additional conditional stuff added to your app, go through these. These are actually do-it-yourself. All you have to do is copy and paste inside your data page wizard, and then you can add that additional functionality inside your application. Okay, so now that I have this script added to hide the results, I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. And hopefully, if all goes well, when I refresh this page, the only thing that's going to display is the chart. So no longer the results. Okay? So that's it for the employee side. So the employees can now add sales. We can look at our performance, overall company performance. We can look at my sales, how I'm doing, and I can also update my profile. So what's left is to go back to the manager side and finish off the application by creating this very last report that allows the manager to be able to see all of the sales. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our data pages now inside the manager folder, and we're going to build a new data page. We're going to build a report. Again, we're going to go with this one here because we want to be able to see performance based on employee. And it's pretty much almost the same setup as the employee report. You just have to go through it one more time. We're going to use the sales data, and let's call this View All Employee Sales Report. And we have to restrict based on the manager authentication. Click Next. And this time I'd like to have a search form, because with the search form, let's go to our live example here as a manager. With the search form allows me to actually search based on employees. So if I only want to pull up specific employee sales, I can do that. And I can also have a date range to search based on last year or next year, depending on when the sale was made. And then we can also just pull up sales to see how each one of these items is performing and what's selling the best. All right, so now let's go ahead and build our data page search form. We're not going to set up RLS because the manager should be able to see everything. And let's search based on employee name, search based on sale date, and also category. You have the ability to add as many search fields as you want. It's up to you. I'm just going to make things a little bit simple here. For employee name, we can see that it's a drop down, so let's set that up. So we create a drop down. And I always like to do both, custom values and lookup table. And then I'll say select employee, delete the value, and then the lookup table is going to select your sales table and all the employees that added their sales. For sale date, notice that I have 3 fields, but in my live example there are 4 fields. So how do we in Caspio create that criteria so we can have a date range? To do that, select your date field, and with this insert button, you're going to create new criteria. And you can see those 2 additional options are now below your sales date field. You're going to select the operator to AND because I want this and this. And criteria 1 is going to be greater than or equal to. And in my label, I'm just going to say from, just so the user knows that this is the from field. And then the second one is going to be less than or equal to. And this is going to be 2. So this is how you set up a date range inside Caspio. You add a criteria, and then you configure these criteria on what you wish to display in the results page. And then for category, we're going to do drop down as well, both. Select category, delete the value, and then you select your categories table that has all those office supplies. Click Next. In my results page, so let's see, what do we have in my results page? When I click search, I have the same chart here. I have calculations, and I'm grouping based on the employee name. Okay, so I'm going to have the employee name in there, sale date, title, description. Oh, before I forget, let me enable advanced options here in the beginning so we can truncate. Okay, so employee name, sale date, title, description, category, quantity, price per item. Okay, so you just have to reconfigure this again. Employee name, we're going to group based on the employee. We're going to have that be collapsible and expanded by default. Sale date, title, description field in the advanced tab, I'm going to truncate that to 10. Category, quantity, price per item, I'm going to format that as a currency. I'm going to add a calculated field. I'm going to call that total. And we're going to just insert those two fields now. Okay, and we're also going to format that as a currency. Okay, and then we also want the totals and aggregation, which is going to be total based on my total field. And I want the sum function, so that's good. And let's click on next. Oh, we also want to apply it to every group. So we want to be able to group based on the employee sales, so how they're doing, each individual's employee. Okay, on this screen, I want to be able to, as a manager, maybe delete the records. We're going to show 25 results per page. Click next. I want this chart to display my employees. So the chart is going to be the same thing. So basically, overall performance. Y-axis is going to be the employee name. I'm also going to show you a pie chart later on so you can see a really cool way to display which categories are selling the most. So category field is going to be employee name. X-axis is going to be total. And we're going to go ahead and make this a currency. Series 1 is going to be total. We want the sum. And also format this as currency. Okay, so let's click next. And on this screen, I also want to sort based on the sum, highest to lowest. So at the top, I have my top performer, and then it goes down the list depending on who's highest to lowest. Next. Yes, I would like to enable a details page because what I want to show you here is when the manager goes to the details view, he or she is able to reassign sales based on a cascading dropdown. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. So let's click on new data page here, and let's go to the details view, and let's move all of our fields to the details view. Click next, and the first one that I want is the employee name, sold by. So we'll move that at the top, and the user ID is going to be directly below it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually make this a dropdown. And this time I'm just going to have a lookup table instead of both because the employee already made the sale. I don't need to see select employee here because it was already made by Chris. So here I can just select the employee's name and it should automatically default to the employee that made that sale. So we're going to have lookup table, and the lookup table that I want here is our user table. And the field for display, I want employee name, and field for value, I want employee name in this dropdown. So when I select a name, I want to store it as a name or this value that's being displayed. The user ID, however, now needs to be a cascading dropdown because it cascades based on the employee name. So again, the parent field, which is the one above it, is going to be the employee name. We want the user table, filter by employee name. Field for display, I want the user ID to be displayed, and I want to store the user ID as well. So that's why you're seeing the names here and what's displayed under the user ID. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, how you're reassigning and changing the ID of the user based on their name in the details view. Sale date, I should also be able to change as a manager. Title, I should be able to edit. Description, I should be able to edit. Category, lookup table as a drop-down. So we're going to do lookup table, and we're going to select categories. And then quantity is going to be a text field. Price per item is going to be a text field. And down here below, you can also, in the details view, you can add a calculated field that's going to give you that total, if you'd like. You don't have to have it here if you don't want to. So I'm just going to add it. Quantity times price. And again, really quickly, you can just format this as a currency. And you're done. So let's go ahead and click on Finish here. Let's deploy the very last data page. And we're going to go ahead and find that page, which is called Sales Report. Okay, save. And hopefully everything works correctly. Let's go to let's refresh our page. And here it is. So now we can do a date range. I can click search. I can see Jesse's performance. I can see group based on his name, all of his sales totals. I can delete the sale if I want to as a manager. I can go to details now. And now you can reassign the sale to somebody else if you wanted to a different employee, or yeah, let's assign this to Walter White, for example. And you can see how the cascading user ID changes depending on who that user is. So 3 and 2. And then here we can click on update. And now I can see that that sale really belongs to Walter White, and now we have Walter's revenue and we have Jesse's revenue at the top. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too overwhelming. It's really, once you build a few of these apps, I keep repeating myself, but you know, it really is true. Once you build a few of these apps a couple of times, then you will be able to build it just as fast as I can. Unfortunately, because we only have 1 hour, we have to speed up through these applications a little bit faster. But we're gonna open up the line now for questions. And like I mentioned in the beginning, we are gonna have a link to this video. If somebody wants to watch this again, email me afterwards. Let me give you my contact information again here, so just bear with me. Okay, and also if anybody wants this application, let me know via email. I'm going to go ahead and export the application to my desktop and send you all the files along with all the HTML files. So if you want to see how this was built yourself and go through it and reverse engineer it, let me know and I will email you everything so you don't have to rebuild it by watching the video. Next week, if anybody has a suggestion for Friday, everybody that's attending today, let me know if you'd like to see something created specifically. It could be something that you're building, and if I think it's suitable for 1 hour, I will go ahead and let you know via email, or we can just build something specific. If you're having issues with something, let me know as well. I was thinking about building a couple of applications that are linked together. When in Caspio, you know, you can have multiple apps here. I thought about maybe building a sales app, not a robust sales app, and also like a support app, and both of those apps are linked using the same table, because in Caspio you can share objects like I mentioned before. You know, one table can be shared across multiple apps. One style can be shared across multiple apps. So that's a huge benefit if you have multiple departments in your organization, to who has access to what application based on that single user table. Okay? Or you can just have one application depending on what you're trying to build. Okay, so I'll stop talking now and open up the line to see if anybody has any questions. Thanks, Brian. Have a good day. Also, I am available via email. Thanks, Jeff. You're welcome. Let me know if you have any specific questions, Jeff, via email. If you want to see something specific for your own app, if you're thinking about doing something, if you're not sure if you can do it, shoot me a quick email, let me know, and I'll give you my in-depth analyzation of what I think would be the best approach. So I'm always available via email if you have any specific questions. Thanks, Doug. Have a good day. Mahalo. Enjoy that Hawaii weather. Even in California now, we have a little bit of rain nowadays, which is unusual for this time of the year. It's in April, so. Okay, will do. I'll follow up via email. Okay, so let's see. There's a question here. Is there a way to get the other videos and presentation from earlier in the week? I'm a new user and would like to help. Sure, Jeff, absolutely. I have all of those links available. So shoot me a quick email. Just jot down my email down below and send me a quick email right after, and I will email you all of those links to our prior sessions so you can catch up. Definitely. And just so you know, Jeff, that every Friday we are going to be building an application from scratch. So there's always something you can learn on Friday sessions. And like I keep saying, if you wanted to see something specific, let me know. And hopefully I can incorporate that in the Friday session. So keep that in mind. You bet. Have a nice day. Thanks, Mike. Have a good day. Mike, I'm available via email as well. If you have any specific questions, let me know. I don't know if you're pretty technical yourself. You have been attending our training sessions, so I do appreciate that. If you are very knowledgeable, if this is rudimentary for you, then I would suggest that you attend the Friday sessions because you can always learn something new. So hopefully this is beneficial for you. Just let me know, okay? And it's just you and I left. So Mike, like I said, if you have any questions, send me an email, and I'm more than happy to assist you. Thanks so much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.